deaths in wrestling are more common than people give it full credit.
Yeah, because sometimes the WWE just ignores them.
Yeah.
Looking at Chris Benoit here.
Yeah, looking at Chris Benoit, looking at several of them.
And when Patrick Boivon's campaign to bring back Benoit.
Yeah.
He did it. He actually did it. They actually acknowledged Chris Benoit again. So that was crazy.
That is crazy.
But,
and also, okay, there's been a lot of wrestling deaths throughout the years that have been like really shocking. Mm-hmm. There's one. There's actually two big examples of wrestling deaths that I think are just absolutely shocking. Number one, the Bruiser Brody incident. I don't know if you've heard about that.
I haven't.
Bruiser Brody, one of the most famous wrestlers never to work for WWE. He was a big guy, like huge guy, and his big brutal style got him over in a big way as like a super heel.
All right.
And he was especially popular in the Latino territories, the Mexican territories, Puerto Rico, and all that.
All right.
And while on a tour over in Puerto Rico, here's the thing about Bruiser Brody as well. Some wrestlers said he was hard to work with, and thus they hired someone to look after him, to manage him a little bit whenever he was in these territories.
Yeah,
so
mitigate.
Yeah, mitigate. Well, one guy, he was assisting the wrestling promoter down in Puerto Rico, and it was a huge crowd that night, massive crowd, one of the biggest crowds in Puerto Rico's history, and all of a sudden, Bruiser Brody gets called back into the shower area to have a talk with this guy, and from what everyone saw, Tony Atlas was there, a very famous wrestler in his own right.
Right.
Saw this happen, and he thought, okay, they were going to discuss, the plans for this evening on, what to go over and all that, and then he remembers hearing a scream, like a very loud, gut-wrenching scream. He runs in there and he sees Bruiser Brody on the ground holding his stomach, bleeding profusely, and this other man standing there with a knife.
Oh.
Now,
oh dear.
Here was the problem. The injury could have been treated, but the ambulance could not get to the hospital because of the immense crowd that was in the streets in Puerto Rico that night. So Bruiser Brody died at the age of 43. And the man who committed the crime, according to Tony Atlas, got away with it because they could never find the knife. And, it's one of the darkest days in wrestling history. And then the second example I can think of is the example of the Von Erich brothers, which there were originally there were six Von Erich brothers. One died when he was a kid from an electrocution accident, and then the remaining 5 became professional wrestlers. And within a decade of each other, 4 of the 5 brothers would be dead.
Wow.
Yeah, and all of them would be dead either by drug overdose, freak accident, or suicide. It's very shocking stuff. But those are examples outside of the wheelhouse of WWE. Although Kerry Von Erich did wrestle in WWE as the Texas Tornado, and actually had some very good matches against the likes of Shawn Michaels. And actually was Intercontinental Champion for a little while. Overall, the Von Erichs and the tragedy of that family and what they suffered is considered one of the dark chapters in the sport of wrestling. And those are examples outside of WWE, as I said. And here are 10 wrestler deaths ignored by WWE, collected by the amazing people at WhatCulture Wrestling. And I believe it's Adam Blampier, or Plumpy, as he's known.
Yes. Good old Plumpy.
Good old Plumpy, who is going to be reading this off. So without further ado, here we go.
The Grim Reaper really is a remorseless twat. In the last 2 years, legends like Vern Gagne, Mae Young, The Ultimate Warrior, Dusty Rhodes, Roddy Piper all departed for the great locker room in the sky. All were commemorated with heroes, tributes, lovingly edited by WWE. But what about the wrestlers whose passing the company barely gave the slightest mention? And why would they be so cold? I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and here are 10
Really? You
wrestler
use
deaths
Glacier?
ignored by WWE. Number 10, Chris Kanyon.
Oh.
Chris Kanyon was a former US champion and tag team champion hired by WWE during the Invasion angle. A lot of people complaining about the Invasion angle these days. I loved it. Wouldn't change a thing. Winky face. In the years following, Kanyon found himself often either on the bench with an injury or jobbing and was released in 2004. Having suffered from bipolar disorder for many years, Kanyon was found dead in 2010 next to an empty bottle of depressants and an apology note.
Oh, no.
The WWE gave him nary a passing mention. Was this because he killed himself? Maybe because he once as part of a publicity stunt told people that WWE released him because he was gay, a statement he later retracted. Perhaps it was because he and Raven once attempted to sue the company for cheating wrestlers out of healthcare. Or perhaps, brutally, the WWE just thought no one would remember him or his run with the company. Do you?
I do.
Number 9, Ludwig Borger.
Oh,
During his brief
man.
run in 1993 to 1994, Finnish superstar Ludwig Borger beat Marty Jannetty at SummerSlam, entered Tatanka's 2-year undefeated streak, feuded with Razor Ramon over the IC title, and competed in the main event of Survivor Series alongside Yokozuna against the likes of the Steiners and The Undertaker. After leaving the company, he also became the first Scandinavian to compete in UFC, won the Finnish Heavyweight Championship as a boxer, and was even elected to Finnish Parliament. Despite all this, in 2010, when Borger was found dead from a self-inflicted gunshot wound, the company didn't acknowledge his death. Independently, JR wrote of Borger's problems with drugs and alcohol and said that he had not been a great guy to be around. Number 8, Chris Candido.
Oh,
well
man.
respected for his technical work rate, Candido had notable careers in both ECW and Smoky Mountain Wrestling. His short WWE career even had a few notable moments, namely providing Barry Horowitz with that infamous upset victory and winning the tag team titles as one half of the OTT fitness pricks, the Body Donners. In 2005, Candido died from complications encountered during surgery, and despite TNA honouring him with a memorial tournament, WWE made only one mention of the man during a gone but not forgotten memorial video for ECW stars during the One Night Stand event that year, a video that WWE management probably wanted no part of, but were forced to make by Paul Heyman. Number 7, Lance Cade. Over the course of his 7 years with WWE, Cade never really realised his potential. For 3 years, he tagged with Trevor Murdoch in the truckiest tag team ever, winning the World Tag Team Championships 3 times. In 2008, he began a slow climb towards main event status, aligning himself with Y2J and feuding with Shawn Michaels, his former mentor, even earning a pinfall victory over HBK on Raw. However, after an abuse of prescription pills caused him to have a seizure on a WWE plane flight, he was released from his contract. Despite attending rehab in 2010, Cade died later that year to heart failure brought on by a mixture of drugs in his system. Number 6, Doink the Clown. And here we are, talking about a dead clown. Sorry, everyone. Originally portrayed by Matt Osborne, Doink was one of the faces of WWE's cartoon period in the early to mid-90s. He was a clown who wrestled. That's just what happens sometimes.
Yep.
He appeared in the Gimmick Battle Royal at WrestleMania 17 and in an episode of Raw in 2007, but when Osborne died from heart failure in 2013, the company was silent. Was this because at least 5 other men had played Doink since Osborne left the company and they wanted to keep the terrifying clown factory open? Perhaps because his death was initially and wrongly attributed to substance abuse. Eventually, a few lines were written on WWE's website, but hardly a fitting tribute for the iconic character. Number 5, Viscera. Big
Daddy V.
The world's largest love machine, passed away in 2014. He had a long
King
and
Mabel.
varied career with the company, including winning the King of the Ring tournament as Mabel and challenging for the WWF title at SummerSlam that same year. After leaving
Worst
and returning
SummerSlam
to the
ever.
company a number of times, Viscera was released for the final time in 2008. In February 2014, Viscera passed away from a heart attack, but received no mention on the Elimination Chamber pay-per-view less than a week later, or Raw the following night. It's not clear exactly why. The man had wrestled in 3 separate eras of the company, and despite being saddled with the large man addicted to sex gimmick that hindered Mark Henry and the Great Khali, was surely present in enough fans' minds for a tribute. Number 4, Nancy Benoit.
Well, this
Most
is
people
cool.
will unfortunately only know Nancy Benoit for being the woman killed by Chris Benoit during his fit of
But
madness
there was
in
actually a lot more
2007.
to her.
In
Yes.
actual fact,
Yes,
Nancy
there
had a
was.
13-year career as a manager, commonly known as Woman in ECW, where she managed Sandman. She would do things like light his cigarettes and become aroused watching him cane Mikey Whipwreck, as you do. She then moved to WCW to join her real-life husband, Kevin Sullivan, but after having a kayfabe affair with Chris Benoit, who was feuding with Sullivan, art imitated life. A romance between Nancy and Chris blossomed for real. She retired and the two married. After it came to light that Chris Benoit had killed his family, the WWE made the decision to never again mention the incident or Benoit himself. As such, Nancy's career and her untimely death will forever go unacknowledged by WWE. Number 3, Test. Test had quite the career in WWE. His on-screen relationship with Stephanie McMahon made him a prominent player early on and having a high-profile feud with Shane O'Mac. However, after Stephanie was drugged and stolen by Triple H, wrestling is fun, Test became a tag team wrestler, working as part of TNA with Albert and Trish Stratus, with Scott Steiner, where they spent their tag career abusing Stacy Keibler, and as part of the Un-Americans with Lance Storm and Christian. His association with that stable getting a one-on-one match with The Undertaker at SummerSlam 2002. He won the European title, Intercontinental title, Hardcore title, Tag titles, and regularly competed for the ECW World title. He died at the young age of 33 from an overdose of painkillers. He wasn't afforded any tribute, likely because of his problems with steroids and pills. Number 2, Umaga. Umaga, racist gimmick though it most definitely was, got Eddie Fatu over in a big way. He was already a member of the Anoa'i family, I hope I pronounced that right, that gave us
Close
The Rock,
enough.
Yokozuna, Roman Reigns and Rikishi. He won the IC title twice and represented Mr. McMahon in the Battle of the Billionaires at WrestleMania 23. He was eventually released from the company in 2009 after violating the wellness policy for the second time and refusing to go to rehab. Later that same year, he suffered heart failure as a result of a toxic cocktail of substances in his system. For falling out of repute with the company for drug infractions and dying of drug abuse, he received no tribute, much to the outrage of fans. Number 1, WWF President Jack Tunney. Before the Montreal Screwjob outed Vince McMahon as owner-operator of WWF, and for over a decade, the WWF was kayfabe run by President Jack Tunney, who in real life was a Canadian promoter who allied himself with Vince McMahon. From 1984 to 1995, he was the man in charge. He wasn't often seen, but anytime a massive announcement had to be made, like the WWF Championship being vacated before the Royal Rumble 1992, or the creation of the WrestleMania 4 Championship Tournament, it came from the office of Jack Tunney. The fictional president was removed from TV in 1995 after the business partnership between Tunney and McMahon ended, and when he died in 2004 of a heart attack, not one person from WWE attended his funeral, and his death went unreported on WWE.com. Heartbreaking. And that's our list. Did we miss any out?
There
Tell
you
us about
go.
it in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And you can even follow me on Twitter here. I'm Adam from WhatCulture.com, and I'll see you soon.
Well, there you go, ladies and
the,
gentlemen.
the Nancy Benoit thing, it was also just, oh.
Yeah, here's...
Yeah, because, I mean, she'd had a fairly long career before Chris Benoit.
Yes, she was a great valet.
Mm-hmm.
She did. I mean, in ECW, I saw some of her old valet work when she was in ECW, and she was good, man. She played the character very well. Honestly, she played that dirtball heel manager valet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, lighting the Sandman cigarette. And also doing heelish things. It was very good. She was very well remembered by a lot of people. I think Paul Heyman and Jim Cornette both said really good things about her, about how she was almost like a mother to the whole locker room. She always wanted to make sure everyone was okay and all that. But when she turned on that persona, she hit it, dude.
Oh yeah,
she hit it.
And I mean, most of my experience with that whole thing was, I mean, I'd seen a fair bit of Chris Benoit because I got into wrestling very late.
Yeah.
So I never really even saw much from ECW or any of that. So, you know, all I really knew was, oh, Chris Benoit.
Yeah.
But yeah, the fact of the matter is, you know, 2 very promising careers ended that night.
Oh yeah.
Ended then. Not just 1.
2. Yeah, and well, Chris was 40 years old, and by all estimations, after he won the WWE Championship, I think he should have retired, go out on top, because a career as blessed as his, and both as mired by setbacks, you know, never winning the brass ring effectively.
Yeah.
I think those I think after you do that, you kind of pull a Seinfeld and you just go out on top. You defend the belt a few times, and then when you realize when you realize that family is most important to you, which to him it was. Chris Benoit, if you heard him talk about his family, to him family was the most important thing. He loved them more than he loved wrestling. And what I would have done is after I'd say a big blow off match at SummerSlam, like I don't know, like a fatal 4-way, you could do a fatal 4-way gimmick match, like a ladder match or something like that, something big. And then have Chris Benoit after that call an announcer up to the ring and says, "There's something I'd like to say." Actually, hold it in his hometown too. Hold it in Edmonton.
Mm-hmm.
Have it in either Edmonton or Toronto, where he is God status, God tier status. And tell him that, and just have him say, "There's no place I'd rather end it than right here, right now."
Yeah.
In front of all of you right here in Toronto or Edmonton or Vancouver. It could have been any of the big cities in mainland Canada. And he just goes and tells them, "Hey, this is the last run that you'll see of the Crippler. I want to thank you all for being there for me. I'd like to thank Stu Hart and the Hart family for teaching me everything I know. And I'd like to thank all my competitors who competed with me tonight in this ring, and everyone in the back who's been with me all these 20 years. Thank you." And then he gets the belt, lays it in the middle of the ring, and then just leaves waving to the crowd, and that's that.
Well, but another part of the problem was that, after everything that he'd been through with his career, his signature move was a flying headbutt.
Of course. Well, that's why I say, because it was 2004 when he won that.
Yeah.
And it was 2007 when everything was so bad. So I think maybe that would have saved him some time. I don't think it would have completely fixed him. I think the damage had already been
almost assuredly already done. Because he after his autopsy, they found that his brain very strongly resembled an 85-year-old Alzheimer's patient.
Yeah, and what I think, and here's the thing, he didn't stop after that, and his matches kept up the intensity.
Mm-hmm.
His matches kept up the intensity, and I think that was the problem, because here's the thing about concussions. The next one you get always does, I think, about 5 times as much damage as the last one.
Especially if you're not given proper time to heal.
Yes. And
his signature move
was the diving headbutt.
Flying headbutt.
Yeah.
There's no way he's getting to heal.
No. And that's why I think, concussion protocol in sports, period, is important.
That's why Daniel Bryan is...
Well, Daniel Bryan, actually, he was cleared for concussions, but he had this little embolism, little embolism in his brain that was keeping him out of that. But Daniel Bryan has said this. He said that he has changed his wrestling style to be less intense, but keep up the technicality.
Mm-hmm.
And also, he's been cleared by a massive amount of doctors. But WWE, fearing the worst, doesn't want him to wrestle again.
Yeah.
Daniel Bryan wants to wrestle. That's his one thing he's wanted to do more than anything his entire life, is wrestle. What I would have WWE do is I'd have them pull like a Shawn Michaels kind of thing and do like a non-sanctioned thing, do like a full non-sanctioned match, and have him test out this new style and see if it meshes with the WWE style.
Yeah, I think if they're going to do that, then, start him back up, not necessarily, full on.
No.
Start him back up maybe in the minors. Let him, go through it a little bit. With the understanding that, if you are injury-free, we're going to move you back up.
Well, I think, but Daniel Bryan
test it out properly.
Well, Daniel Bryan's such a big player on the WWE stage, though. If he did like small single A minors matches, they would they'd be losing out on on his first time back in the ring. I think you see, I think they need to run a few test matches at, say, like Full Sail University, where they have NXT, at the training center, and have him run through like good 10, 12, 15-minute matches there.
Well, that's what I mean. Don't put him immediately back in. Let him, run some test matches, then, immediately check out, make sure that everything's all right with his head, and then go from there.
I get that, and I agree. Because the worst thing that could be done by him is leaping right back into the fire without forging his new style and making sure that it works 100%. And I think, Ric Flair suffered a career-threatening injury way back in the 70s, back before he was the Nature Boy. Mm-hmm. Back then, he was this big lumbering, physical phenom. He weighed close to 300 pounds, actually. A lot of people forget that. You should actually see. I saw a picture of him, and my buddy Chad said, "Good Lord, man, it's Thick Flair," because he was like massive. And then after this huge plane crash, that doctor said, "You're never going to wrestle again."
Ric Flair said, "I'll show you."
Ric Flair actually slimmed up, changed his wrestling style, and went on a run of a lifetime. He was the NWA. He absolutely was. People think, oh, Ric Flair, he was a part. No, he was the NWA. People paid good money to see Ric Flair come to town, trash their favorite wrestlers, get in a hell of a match with him, get the crap kicked out of him, and then be the dirtiest player in the game. Low blow him, get him in a roll up, get him in a figure four, cinch up a small package and win. And that would only add to the hate that he would get. But that was the point.
I mean, people came to see the Flair chop. They came to see the Flair flop. They came,
Yeah, they came to see everything.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing with Daniel Bryan, because Daniel Bryan, you won't believe. I mean, honestly, I still hear yes chants. Yes,
yeah, dude.
Yes.
Dude's got charisma.
Yes, he's got charisma.
And that's such a tricky thing to, like, to borrow a phrase that I really quite hate. You can't teach that.
Well,
it's very, like, if you can, it's very difficult. Well,
here's one thing. There's some people who naturally have charisma. There's on microphone charisma, which, case in point, The Rock. Rock's on mic charisma is just astounding. Seeing him work his magic is mind blowing.
Which is why he's become such a successful actor.
Yes. John Cena also early on, Doctor of Thugonomics, he had on mic charisma.
Oh yeah, I remember the Thugonomic days. That's when I got into wrestling. I remember Thugonomics.
Yeah, and he can still talk mad shit. He can still talk mad trash, just like examples of modern era with Roman Reigns. He's talking mad shit with Roman Reigns.
Oh yeah,
and he's good at it.
And that's him going off book too.
Yeah, some of it isn't going off book. That's
not the script. That's him.
Well, some of it is scripted, but there's some stuff he does go off book, and it's been met with great response. Now, okay, and then you have in-ring charisma. Not necessarily the best on microphone charisma, but in the ring, these people can get you going with their moveset. Case in point with that, Shawn Michaels. Shawn Michaels' moveset lent himself so much charisma just from his moves and just from his in-ring persona. His in-ring persona, him lounging in the corner just like, are you finished with your entrance? Okay. Yeah. All right, let's limber up. Let's fight. Come
honestly, on. Eddie Guerrero.
Oh, Eddie Guerrero as well. In-ring charisma. He had.
That was a man that got you hyped.
Same thing with the microphone. He could actually talk on the microphone as well.
Yeah.
There's been very few wrestlers who've had the full package, and what I mean by that is on microphone charisma and in-ring charisma.
Yeah.
You see, The Rock early on, he had a little bit of in-ring charisma, but his on microphone charisma was so bad. He was smiling Rocky. He was the smiling kid, Rocky Maivia, coming out in those bright colors, big old white smile and all that. Mm-hmm. And people hated him. I mean, people were chanting "Die Rocky Die" at the shows. And then all of a sudden, here comes The Rock.
And you're just like, whoa.
Here comes The Rock, and he's allowed to get on the microphone and talk the trash that he wants to talk. And then he later changes his moveset to be like crowd pleasing. You know, you got the people's elbow, the rock bottom.
Oh,
you've got the
people's elbow.
You got that awesome spine buster that he does. You got the kip up that he does in the ring sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's great stuff.
And you're just like, ooh.
Yeah. I think that's why The Rock took off after he dropped the good boy, the good boy smiling kid gimmick and just went, "Hey, I'm going to be me. I'm going to be me on this microphone. I'm going to talk the smack, and I'm going to make sure people know that the reason that they should be here tonight isn't for Stone Cold Steve Austin. It ain't for anyone else, but it is for the great one and the only, the people's champion, The Rock."
Yeah, it's like, I mean, Stone Cold, I can't imagine that Stone Cold was putting on a persona.
No.
Yeah. It's like,
no, he wasn't.
Let Stone Cold be Stone Cold, let The Rock be The Rock, and you're going to get excellent things.
You get probably the greatest era in modern day wrestling. You get the Attitude Era, which had its shortcomings. We've discussed this in the past.
Oh yes,
but you want to talk about popularity? Wrestling was never more popular than when it was in the Attitude Era, from late 1996 and early 1997 until 2001, 2002. Those 4 to 5 years right there changed the landscape of wrestling forever.
I still see people wearing Stone Cold shirts.
Of course. People, because it'll stand the test of time for a long time. That's the same reason why people would talk about Hulk Hogan, even though he hadn't been in wrestling hadn't been in the WWE for more than 10 years.
Yeah.
You see, people like wrestling because it's a show. It's this grand spectacle. And they're putting on these moves that should not work, but you're enthralled by this. You're just blown away.
Somewhere in the back of your head, you're like, they're not actually getting hurt, and you know that.
Well, they are getting hurt to some degree,
but it's way, way, way less than what you would think. They take a few bumps.
Yeah,
but it's not at all like, oh, that man's dead.
Yeah.
Well, unless you're Mick Foley jumping off of things, in which case that man might be dead.
That man might be dead, and then he stands up. He's like, "I'm ready for more. Bring it on." And
entered the same Royal Rumble 3 times.
Yep.
Oh,
Craziness.
But, maybe, and this is a dangerous thing. Maybe just letting somebody be themselves. Maybe that's what they need to do for Roman. Because apparently Roman can't be nice in interviews.
He can't.
So, yeah, maybe just let him go.
Yeah.
Let him do his thing. Whatever that thing is. Because I don't know what it is.
Yeah, because
maybe
what they've been trying hasn't been working, but...
okay, we're doing a wrestling video. We couldn't get out of here without
making
jabs at Roman.
Of course.
Because we have to. We are contractually obligated. The contracts that are pretty much just the PlayStation Store terms of service with you have to make fun of Roman Reigns, copied and pasted several times in the last paragraph.
Yeah, and right under that it says, and at the same time, for some reason, try and make Roman look strong, which we violated that. So our contract is now
we're
null
already
and void.
on thin ice.
Yeah, so we got to be careful.
Ourselves,
I guess.
Dude, do we have some sort of weird commissioner? Is it Chico? Is Chico the mysterious commissioner of Renegades, of the Renegade Media Group?
Maybe.
Find out next time. Goodbye.